What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Book of JT and welcome to my Carolina Panthers offensive ebook for Madden 22. Now, this, in my opinion, is the best offense in the game. I've been running this for about a month and a half now, and I've had great success out of this playbook. It's a really nice variation of off-meta formations and meta formations. So we're going to be basing our offense out of things that your opponent most likely doesn't have great defense for because they're not very commonly called formations. But then we also have access to some of the meta formations because we would be remiss not to use some of the best plays in the game as well out of a formation like gun bunch offset. So our offense is going to be primarily based out of the gun tight Y off. I'm going to show you some breakdowns out of the gun bunch offset as well as the gun tight slots halfback weak. And then we'll move on to some under center stuff as well that I run out of I form close and single back wing tight. So the aim of this is to give you a free, complete ebook that I've been finishing top 100 in weekend league with, give you everything you need to have success on the offensive side of the ball. What I will say is that there is only so much I can show you in practice mode against a CPU defense. The reality is that when you start to go up against high-level players who make on-the-fly adjustments, you need to be able to think on the fly and, have some unique setups created. And the way that you can learn that aspect of this formation and this game plan in general is to go ahead and check out my Twitch. Now, I stream a few times a week, and on those streams, you will see me running this exact offense against a variety of high-level players. So you can sort of learn what I look for and what I do. If you have any questions about the offense, ask me them on stream, and I'll take you through them. And in general, if you study these ebook videos, and you also watch me run them in real time, you can learn a lot and then really improve your offense yourself. So there's a lot to break down and a lot to get through. This first part of the ebook will be strictly regarding the gun tight Y off, which is, as I mentioned, one of my favorite formations in the game by far. And I want to talk about the personnel abilities and then the setups. So first thing is the abilities. Ability-wise, the only two mandatory abilities that I would recommend is Hot Route Master on your quarterback, and then either Backfield Mismatch or Backfield Master on your running back. The reason why is because we are going to be passing to our running back a lot. There are some really nice plays in this formation and in this entire game plan that involve us passing the ball to our running back out of the backfield. So you need to make sure that, they have the ability to catch the ball consistently. With that being said, let's jump straight into it. We're going to start off with the play inside zone. All right, now the inside zone out of this formation is one of the best inside zones in the game by far. You have the running back who is slightly offset, about a step behind the quarterback, which, from my experience, when he takes the handoff, you seem to have great control over your running back out of this formation. On top of that, the blocking is outstanding. I find that this is probably one of the best inside zones in any shotgun formation, just because of how good the blocking is. And then on top of that, you have the ability to really set up your opponent for your passing plays later on when you run this ball consistently. So I'm going to snap the ball here, and I'm going to take a few snaps just to show you what I look for. Generally, what I look for when I run this play is I look for a gap on this left side of the field so I can take it to the outside. And if it's available, I'll take it. If it looks like there's going to be a shed from a defender on the left here, oftentimes I'll just cut this back and take the cutback lane and get outside right there. Now, one thing that I really want you guys to get used to doing when you run this play is to not hold turbo until you're in open space. I will never hold turbo behind the line of scrimmage. A few years ago, there was a patch some coding that leaked, and in that coding they talked about how if you hold turbo behind the line of scrimmage, you're more likely to trigger block sheds. Okay, this was leaked years ago. I'm unsure if that still remains true in Madden 22, but from my experience, when I don't hold turbo, I find the blocking holds up very well. Now, when I'm running this play, I'm off turbo until I hit the edge. When I need to beat this defender, now I hold turbo and try to cut to the outside. But when I'm behind the line of scrimmage and trying to figure out which hole I want to hit, I'm never holding turbo. Now, not holding turbo also allows you greater mobility with your running back. As you can see right there, I was able to really assess the blocking. And then once I felt like a shed was going to come through that gap that I initially wanted to go through right here, you can see I can see 50 trying to make that shed. I'm able to steer my running back to the outside and hit the edge again. And this is very simple, but not holding turbo just allows you to really pick where you want to run the ball, gives you a lot more control over the ball carrier, and it's a really effective way of consistently running the ball this year. Some people will try to shoot the run through this sort of gap between the left tackle and the left guard. Again, any time your opponent's trying to blow this up on the left side, you can literally just use this like a counter run and get to the outside and get a big gain. It's just a very, very good run. Okay. Now, if your opponent is having some success blowing up the run, what I recommend you do is go ahead and flip the play. And by flipping the play, it will change the targeting on the offensive line. So oftentimes if people can shoot it one way when it's running to the left, if you flip it, they will have a lot of trouble doing the same thing when it goes to the right. So that's just something to consider. If you are having trouble running it against someone who can gap shoot well, just flip it, and a lot of the time people won't be able to shoot it the same way. Alright, but it's a very good play call. Definitely run it. And with that being said, let's move on to the passing plays. Just don't get discouraged. Keep pounding the ball. Alright. Alright, now moving on to our first passing play in this formation, which is flood drive. Now, by default, I feel like flood drive is one of the best base plays in the game because you have stock on this play, a 10-yard dig to your slot receiver, which in this case is Godwin. You have a 10-yard out route to your tight end. You have a default table route out of the backfield to Fournette, and then you have a drag on the left side of field. Now, those routes by themselves are fantastic. You also have a built-in post route to your strong side wide receiver. However, when I run this, I often will put my strong side wide receiver on a streak just to clear out that right side of the field. So at the snap of the ball, I always read the flats. If the flats are open, I'll just check down to my running back and take my 5 to 6 yards. I am a dink and dunk player a lot of the time, and then I look to, take my deep shots when they present themselves. But I feel like moving the ball consistently this year is really important. If you can get down to, the 40 or 30 yard line, you can start to rip some of those big gaining plays to get into the end zone. But I feel like being able to move the ball consistently and really attack your opponent is key. So this is a nice check down. Now, just say, for example, your opponent is covering that. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll automatically look from the flats to the drag. So if the flats are covered, even though they're open there, I'll just check down to this drag behind it, which again, only about a 5-yard pass, but you can usually get some run after catch. So again, if I can get the drag behind it, I'll hit the drag. And then finally, if the drag and the flats are both covered, a lot of the time, unless they're playing Mable coverage, you'll find that this 10-yard out route will get wide open to Gronkowski, which you can take for a big gain downfield. Okay, now the reason why that 10-yard out route gets so open, if they're playing hard flats or if they've set their zone depths to 5 or less, is because this flat route will drag the flats down. Okay, this deep out route gets open because the streak is running off any deep zones. And then obviously you have the crossing routes underneath. But in general, it's just very difficult for your opponent to guard all of these routes because they all break at different times and they all attack various parts of the field at different depths. So even, over the middle, you can see this drag route gets open. And then if this hook curl comes down to defend it, you can throw this inside dig behind it, right? It's very difficult for your opponent to guard all of these routes consistently. And again, that out route is really money against cover 4. And then against man-to-man, this is one of the best plays in the game because all of these routes have sharp cuts. So the out route, especially with a good, route runner, gets good separation on the cut. So does the dig, and then the drag is a nice drag underneath that usually can get you inside position. So you can usually hit this drag right there and get upfield. And then if you have time in the pocket, you can obviously look to hit the dig and the out route. Now, another adjustment that I'll sometimes make if I'm facing a player that's running a lot of man-to-man, is I'll go ahead and I'll just put my running back on an out route instead of a table route. And then you'll find that often this cut out of the backfield is quick, and then you can get downfield and beat your man-to-man assignment. So that's flood drive, very useful against pretty much any defensive play call. Only two adjustments that I usually make is to streak the strong side receiver, and then against man-to-man, look to put my running back on an out route just to get that separation, okay? So the next play that I want to break down is going to be the play Will Spot. Now, Will Spot is actually going to be your first audible in this formation, and it's a play that I always recommend keeping in your audibles because it's very effective against a specific zone call that people like to call, which is either a zone blitz or Mable coverage, which I'll break down in a couple of minutes. But it's also a very good base play, similar to flood drive. So the way that I set this up is quite simple. What I like to do is I like to put my slot wide receiver on a post route, just like so, and then I put my strong side wide receiver on a flat route, just like this. This is how your play out will look. Now, your outside wide receiver on the left of screen, Mike Evans, he can really do whatever you want. I mean, we don't use him too much. We're usually attacking the right side of the field here. So you can always go ahead and, put him on a stop and go, which is a really good route against man coverage. A smart route at stop and go. A lot of the time will blow past man coverage for a one-play score. You can leave him on his streak. You can put him on a corner route. This is where having Hot Route Master is really effective. And you can really manipulate the zones and create different looks. But the two hot routes that you always will make is to put your slot receiver on a post and then your strong side wide receiver on a flat. Now your first read here is always going to be this wheel route out of the backfield. And if you've played any high level competition this year, you've probably given up at least, 2 or 3 first downs to a wheel route. Wheel routes this year are very, very good because they attack a very soft spot against zone coverage. Now, if you look at the defensive play out, you'll see that I do have a hook curl on the field here, Jones, and then I also have Leonard Floyd, who's in a purple. If I go ahead and put Leonard Floyd even in a hard flat, so he's playing closer to the line of scrimmage, and I line up this hook curl right over the numbers, you'll see that at the snap of the ball it won't matter. For some reason, and don't ask me why, these wheel routes are just impossible to guard with zone coverage, and you can always pretty much low ball that to the inside and get that completion against zone. I actually haven't found a zone that takes away wheel routes this year. The only thing that people can do is use them or put, a man assignment on them. All right. Now, oftentimes what will happen when you start to run this repeatedly is people will go ahead and they'll, user that wheel route to take it away. You'll see their user fly out to the right side, anticipating you to throw that wheel route. Now, I obviously can't control 2 controllers at once, so I'm going to put Jones on a man assignment just to sort of simulate what a user would do. And that's where you can try to hit this post route. You can try to low ball this post route over the middle, just like so. You can also hit the drag underneath if you want. That's always an option as well. So again, you can see you can snap throw this drag route if you want to get upfield. 2 very quick options, but as I said, if people are clearing out the middle of the field with their user, really trying to get across and use that wheel route, which a lot of people do, that's where you can get a bigger gain with this post over the middle. So you can just low ball that underneath those safeties and possession catch the ball. All right, now finally, if you find someone playing a lot of hard flats against you and you want a late read, you can wait for this post to make its way across the field, and you will have a pocket to land this. You'll see right here, we got shedded right there. So I'll just snap that again. But you'll see if someone is playing hard flats against you, you can often fit this pass in pretty deep. Even if they're playing 10-yard flats, you'll find that you can often fit this ball in right over the top, right there. But that's a first setup. Look for the wheel route. If you don't have the wheel route, if they're using it, look for the post or the drag. And then again, if it's hard flats and you have time in the pocket, you can often try to throw this post late and fit it in that pocket right there. Okay, that's the first setup. Now, this is what we run against people who like to zone blitz, most commonly the Mike Blitz 3 that you've probably come up against a ton of times. Okay, people run the Mike Blitz 3. This works very well against it. Or if people run, Mable coverage where their defense looks like this. Okay, either of these two coverages, the quick snap will spot will work very well. So let's go over the blitz first, and then we'll move on to the Mable. Again, basically what this does if they're blitzing heavy is it gives you two quick hitch options over the middle that you can throw to. So right there, for some reason, Goldman didn't react. We'll do that again. All right. So you have two hitch options. You have triangle and you have circle to hit either one of your receivers, the slot receiver or the strong side receiver. Again, if you look at this in replay mode, you'll see that because there's such a heavy blitz, there's not going to be many zones over the middle of the field if people are protecting the flats. So you can just go ahead and snap throw either one of these two. Now, oftentimes your opponent will go ahead and they'll use a one. So for example, they might see you throwing it to the slot receiver a lot, so they'll go ahead and try to take that away. And again, if they do that, if you see him shoot over there, just low ball this to your strong side wide receiver who's on a hitch. And you can really turn this into a big play. The only way that they can take this away is by manning up each receiver or getting out of their blitz, really, because if they have one hook curl over the middle, even if they have a hook curl there, it's going to be very difficult for them to guard both. One will generally get open, and it's a very annoying thing for them to have to defend. Okay, now the same thing applies if they run Mable coverage. So I can't really show you proper Mable coverage in practice mode because we don't have access to zone drops, but to sort of simulate what zone drops usually do when they have their defense looking like this, generally they'll have someone playing the direct flat, at a very shallow depth, and then they'll have someone at about 15 yards. So to sort of simulate that, I'm going to put cloud flats on the field, and I'm going to put hard flats on the field, just to give that same sort of look. And again, if they do that, you'll see that you just pick a side, you wait, and then you just low ball one of those hitch routes, and from there you'll have some openings. Okay, if your opponent goes ahead, same thing, runs Mable coverage like this, and they might, use the right of screen, you're going to have this hitch to triangle right there, which you can throw to. So mix that in. Your first setup was a base setup against any coverage, and the second one that I showed you is for Mike Blitz 3, most zone blitzes, and of course against Mable coverage. All right, moving on to our third passing play, which is the play PA Go Slot Cross. This is going to be your fourth audible. You need to keep this one in your audibles too because it's a very good play to mix in, and it's almost impossible for your opponent to stop if they're not expecting it. Now, how I run this is quite simple. I go ahead and I put my outside wide receiver on the left of screen on an in route. I put my tight end on a blocking assignment, and then I put my strong side wide receiver on a streak. Now, you can run this with the play action if you wish to, but the only risk with doing that is that if your opponent pass commits, they'll often get quick pressure at the quarterback. Okay? The last thing that I'll tell you before we snap the ball is that you can double team to try to seal the edge and allow yourself to roll out. So oftentimes if I know for a fact that it's a 3-man rush, and I know that this player right here is going to be the furthest edge rusher outside, then I'll often double team them. If I know that they're going to send the outside linebacker, then I'll double team the outside linebacker. Obviously this is, it's not specific to the 3-3-5 wide. The same thing can be said if they're running, nickel 2-4-5, right? Again, right here, if I think that the furthest rusher to the edge is going to be the linebacker, then I'll double team him. And if I think it's going to be the defensive end or the tackle, then I'll double team them. Okay, but again, very simple play call. Just get outside and throw this ball over the top. Now, nothing in the game will defend this except for your opponent using it. So, as you can see right here, even if they have zone drops set to like 30 yards, it won't be enough, unfortunately, because we're snapping this ball at the 29-yard line on our side of the field, and our receiver is catching this at the opposing 25-yard line. So way over 30 yards, no zone drops will even come close to playing this. The only zone in the game that could potentially disrupt this would be like an outside third or an outside quarter. But because we have this streak route running off any of the deep zones, they won't be able to play it either. So, I mean, when I tell you, the only way your opponent can stop this is by using it. And when you take into account the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be running the ball very heavy. We're going to be using a lot of checkdowns and routes around the 5 to 15 yard line. They're really not going to be expecting this play. And by the time they realize that this play is as dangerous as it is, it's too late, right? Like if they're expecting the run here or a check down, chances are your opponent's user is near the line of scrimmage, right? They might be looking to take away this in route because we've been hitting, drags underneath. They might be checking the flats. They might be checking, anything underneath, right? They might even fall for the play action and run up to try to shoot a gap on the run. And then by the time they realize it's not a handoff, sorry, this crossing route from your slot receiver is like way downfield, and you can just bring that ball in for a massive gain. So mix it in, use it sparingly. Don't run this every single play. You want to keep this in your back pocket for when you really need it. But again, there is no, zone in the game that's going to play this. If I go ahead and I audible to cover 4, for example, you'll see right here, not even cover 4 will play it. It's just the way that the zones play this year. There's no zone that's going to play this. All right. If they play man-to-man coverage, that was match right there. Match won't play it. If they play man-to-man, all right, this is Ramsey up against Godwin, so Ramsey may do a decent job, but again, we talked about personnel, and we talked about how you want to have your fastest wide receiver at this position. So chances are you'll have a speed mismatch there as well, which will make it even tougher for your opponent to guard. But against man, you'll see that initial cut is going to cause separation. And if you have, the speed advantage, then you're going to be able to win that matchup pretty much every single time. So you can see they get inside position against their man and then cut. And if they have the speed, they'll just pull away here. Okay, quite simple. So a very good play, mix it in, use it sparingly, and keep it in your back pocket. All right, moving on to our next play, which is our cover 3 beater, switch wide receiver drag. Now we are pushing 30 minutes on this video. I'm trying to keep as much content in here as I can. I want to make it concise, but I also want to give you all of the minutia that makes this formation as effective as it is. I will say this, before we get into this cover 3 beater, if you are enjoying the video, please leave a like and leave me some feedback in the comments. A lot of people charge real money for ebooks, and I'm not going to do that this year. This year is all about building a community and building a channel where people can come and expect to find free content that is just as good as paid content. And that's what I want to try to do. So if you support that, and if you want to see more videos similar to this, please leave a like. It takes a few seconds and it would really be appreciated. Don't feel compelled to, but it would really help me out. So I would appreciate it. With that being said, let's jump into this play. Now this play, switch wide receiver drag, as I mentioned, is a cover 3 beater, and it is a little bit different to the other plays that I've shown you so far. So unlike the other plays, this play is hash dependent, which means that in order to run it as a 1-play score or as a cover 3 beater, you need to have your 2 wide receivers on the short side of the field. So if you're on the left hash, you want your 2 wide receivers on the left side of the field. And then if you're on the right hash, then you would want to have your 2 wide receivers to the right side of the field. So just bear that in mind. It isn't a huge tell. Obviously, if you're running this play with your 2 wide receivers to the left by default, then you can look at, running this when you're on the left hash, just so it's not a tell for your opponent, because it really won't look any different to what we've been running so far. But the setup that I run here is I block my tight end and I streak my running back, just like so. Now I'm going to snap this ball. I want to show you this is a cover 3 shell, and this is post patch. Okay, I'm going to spy out the defensive line just so I can get better pass protection. because I don't want to get shedded. The idea of this is that, you need a one-play score, you need a big play against cover 3. I don't want the pass rush to get there. But as you can see right here, this is a very, very nice play that you can go to against cover 3. Now, basically, what happens on this play to get this open is you have a corner out on the short side of the field to Godwin, your slot receiver. And when he runs this corner out, he's going to pull the deep third on that side of the field down, right? Now, the middle third safety is retreating, and he won't really run too far with that crossing route. Now, if you don't have any routes in this vicinity, sometimes I've found that the middle third safety will kind of shade towards that crossing post. But because there's a streak behind it right here to Leonard Fournette, it does hold the safety a little bit, and he can't really break towards the ball until the ball comes out of Brady's hands. Then he would sort of turn out towards it. Now, as far as the pass lead that you want to put on this ball, I recommend passing it to like 10 or 11 o'clock, maybe more towards 11, because this outside third will recover and try to get back and play that. So the more you can almost pass lead it up, the better. You just don't want that middle third safety jumping it. So I'll run it one more time just to show you. Again, I'll try to get this pass lead correct. But you can see it does get open there. It's not always a one-play score, but it is a big gain against cover 3, and it is definitely a cover 3 beater. Now, another option for you, and this doesn't sound as appealing, I know, but it is worth considering. You also have this drag underneath. So if I run this, I know that you're not running this play so that you can throw a drag. I get that, but the thing is that you always want to have check down options just in case your opponent takes away your main read. So having that Leonard Fournette on that streak, or your running back on that streak, it does clear out the hooks as well. It pushes them back, so it does give you, obviously you can throw it there if you want to, but having that streak on there, it does sort of run off the hooks over the middle, and it opens up space underneath for you to throw this drag to Evans. So it's worth considering that that's also an option for you. And then, you can obviously look to throw the S post as the main read on this play as a one-play score. All right, so that sums up switch wide receiver drag. With that being said, let's jump into the final play in this formation that I want to break down, which is going to be Redzone Scissors. All right, now moving on to our final passing play in this formation, which is Redzone Scissors. Now, Redzone Scissors is a very, very effective play, and it is good in the red zone. I will say that I do run this in the red zone quite often because you have a really nice route out of the backfield, which gets into a tender spot against zone coverage and is very difficult to guard. So I want to really talk a lot about that route and the different ways that you can use it. But my general setup to run Redzone Scissors is to put my single side receiver, so my strong side receiver, on a streak once again, and then your backside receivers, you can really do whatever you want with. I actually will occasionally run a bit of a strange setup here. So what I'll often do is I'll put this receiver right here, my slot receiver, on a zig route, and then I'll put my outside wide receiver on a curl like this. And the reason I run it like this is because this zig route will absolutely toast man-to-man coverage. And I find a lot of the time, especially with the way that we're running, the PA slot cross, and a lot of the plays that we run attack the right side of the field. And I find that a lot of the time my opponent will take, their hook curls and their zone resources from the left of screen, and they'll start to sort of use them to bring them across and defend crossing routes and drags and routes that attack the right of screen. So sometimes forcing my opponent to leave their hook curls on the left of field by putting a curl over there and then having a zig on the same side just forces my opponent to respect the fact that we can attack the left and the right if we wish to. All right, so that's sometimes how I set it up. Now, the main part of this play that makes it so effective is the route to the flats to your tight end is a very nice flat route. It attacks the flats very quickly. And if you throw there, you can really rack and get upfield quite well for about 8 yards. But if they play hard flats, you have a really nice route out of the backfield, which is going to toast pretty much any coverage in the game, including man. So I'm going to set this up once again, this time against hard flats. And you'll see right here that if we run this, we get this nice route out of the backfield to our running back, which is incredibly tough to guard. Now, what makes this route so effective is that it breaks very quickly, so you can see that it's a very quick developing route. So you don't need to wait very long for this to get into a position where you can throw it for a big gain. As soon as he gets sort of outside the numbers right there, you can throw that ball. And obviously if you're on the, if you're throwing this from the left hash, then it would be once he gets into his second cut, right? But basically, as soon as your running back starts to clear that flat, you can pass lay that up, rat catch it, and get downfield. It's a very good route. The other thing you can do with this is you can just throw it as if it was a wheel route. So again, you can go ahead and you can, same setup, and you can just throw it right here if you wish to. And it doesn't seem like a very safe throw, but it is for some reason. It seems to be a route that you can just throw at the snap, like right there, and just possession catch it. Or if you have backfield master, you can obviously go ahead and rat catch it and trust that your running back will hold on to the ball. But yeah, it's a nice route. You can throw it a myriad of ways. Again, right here, Floyd is kind of playing that because he's not in a hard flat. And if you look at this, you'll see that the flats are wide open. So I could obviously throw right there. But if you're going up against hard flats, you can really throw this as if it's a a wheel route out of the backfield. So you'll see right here, same setup, and I'm able to just really snap throw this right there and just possession catch it. So especially in the red zone, we talk a lot about trying to score it down in the red zone, and there are plays later in this game plan that will be in the future parts that I'll go over scoring in the red zone. But if you want to score in the red zone using, this formation, one of the ways that you can do it is to run this play, Redzone Scissors. You can just set it up as I mentioned, just like this. And then if you don't want to streak Miller, you can just put him on a drag if you want to. Just for something a little bit different, but you can just low ball that right there and get into the end zone very easily. So very effective play. That route out of the backfield is tremendous, and it really caps off everything well. So I hope that sort of makes everything quite clear as to why I like the tight Y off so much. We pretty much went over every single passing play available, but it's not a coincidence. I'm telling you, this is one of the best formations in the game, and the setups are quite simple. A lot of the stock routes that are on these plays work really well, and we're really just taking advantage of, the way that the game plays, right? Wheel routes work well. Hitch routes work really well against the current meta. Zone drops only go to 30 yards, so we have a few routes that attack beyond 30 yards. Cover 3 is a very popular defensive play call, so we have a cover 3 bomb included in this formation. And, the list goes on. It's a very good formation, a lot of diverse play calling, a good run, and in general, it's a formation that you really need to learn and get comfortable in before you move on to anything else, because once you do, you'll have a lot of games where you can just sit in this and win a lot of ball games, which I recommend. So the next episode will cover the next formation, which will be bunch offset, depending on how much content I have from bunch offset. And I run a lot of these plays, but I'm just going to figure out, what I feel is worth discussing in an ebook, and a lot of it probably is, so this will probably be its own episode, but I may also just sneak in tight slots halfback week as well, because the setups from this are a lot more minimal. But regardless, both of these formations are great, and they'll be the next editions of this ebook, and then we'll move into under center after that. So I hope you enjoyed. As I mentioned earlier, if you did, please leave a like and leave a comment. Let me know what playbook you're running now. Let me know, any questions you have. And as I mentioned earlier, there's only so much that I can show you against CPU defenders. And if you come over to my Twitch, which is going to be in the description, you'll be able to see me run this against real life opponents in real time, and we can chat about it there. So again, I appreciate you checking in, watching the video. Have a good day, stay safe, and I'll be back soon with some more commentary. Thanks for watching.